This is Quicksilver by Callie Hart.
Quicksilver by Callie Hart.
Quicksilver by Callie Hart.
This book.
BookTok was right about this one.
I truly wish I had read this book sooner.
I haven't stopped thinking about it since.
Highly recommended.
The banter is so good.
The spice in this book was spicing.
I can't even explain how much I love it.
This was a 5 out of 5 read for me.
I'm so here for it.
I am obsessed with this book.
Everything I want out of a fantasy romance book.
I love it. I can't get enough.
What up, you first little Hello, everyone, and a huge welcome to all of our Wild and Windy West attendees joining us today. I'm Sarah, your host for Love on Demand, and we are so excited to be here with you. Today, I'm absolutely thrilled to be joined by #1 New York Times bestselling author, Callie Hart. Her breakout Romantasy Quicksilver quickly became a global sensation, debuting at the top of bestseller lists and captivating readers around the world, with sequel Brimstone achieving the same incredible success. We'll be talking all about her creative journey, the inspiration behind her worlds, and of course, answering your burning questions. So please join me in giving a very warm welcome to Callie Hart.
Hello.
I'm so excited you're here with us. Thank you for joining us today.
Absolutely. I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person, but this is a good compromise, I think. So I'm stoked it worked out.
Okay, so clearly we're all so very obsessed with the series. Quicksilver was a massive hit, what felt like right away. Were you expecting the kind of reception you received from readers?
No, not at all. It was probably like a 2-month lag between the release and things finally kind of like picking up steam. It was a kind of scary period between those, release and when it finally started picking up and people were starting to read it. I thought my book had failed. So there was a very long period of time there where I was like, okay, well, c'est la vie, that happens. I'm still really proud of it and I love the book. So I was, trying to think about how to promote the work and things like that. But it's very tough in the indie world after you've already released a book to kind of like pull it back from the brink. So I kind of just assumed that was it, honestly. And then out of nowhere, I sent the book out. I've said this a million times in a million different interviews, so I'm so sorry if people have heard it before. Yeah, I sent it out to like 15 people on TikTok, and the rest is history, 15 people got back to me and said, yeah, I'd love to read it. I sent them a copy of the book, and within days it was, blowing up. So gotta love TikTok.
So you were indie published with this first. What was it like finding mainstream success and then getting traditionally published with it?
I was very, very grateful when things started to pick up and when, I was kind of watching it climb the ranks. Oh, this is kind of doing something, actually. Like, what's happening here? Out of nowhere, it was #1. That was a pretty wild experience. I think the closest I'd gotten was number 13 before. So, yeah, it was kind of very surreal. I was getting messages in my DMs from publishing houses and people were saying, we want to be the ones to publish this book, which was phenomenal and a real pinch me moment. I got my agent shortly after things kind of blew up. And then she wrangled the chaos. Thank God for her. It was just navigating how to handle the logistics of like a book that was doing really well by myself for a hot second there. That was tough. But then, having a team behind you always helps. So being able to, cultivate that team and bring people on board and partner with a publisher was really, really amazing.
That's awesome. I love it. Has fan reactions to Kingfisher surprised you? Because people are obsessed, rightly so, especially with the audiobook, which is narrated by Anthony Palmini and Stella Bloom.
I'm about to introduce you to all 7 gods. When you meet them, don't forget to tell them I'm the one you worship on your knees.
How has that felt having characters or having people so invested in the characters that you've created?
Yeah, it's surreal again because, he's so important to me. So it's very nice to, see that people love him as much as I do. I'm always surprised by the amount of attention that Carrion gets. Conversely, he's one of my favorite characters for sure. And I'm surprised by how split people are over whether they're Team Kingfisher or Carrion. Not that, you need to choose.
I love a girl with a sharp tongue and a bad attitude. Kind of makes my hard.
It's just wonderful, it's amazing seeing people embrace this thing that I kind of created in the shower probably and run with it. And really, the cosplay that I see and people doing lip sync and creating content with it is just amazing. It's mind blowing. It feels very surreal.
It's been amazing. I love seeing it, especially the cosplays. I'm like, there's a girl that cosplays as Carrie and she does like the lip syncs, and I'm like, okay, one, gorgeous, two, love this. But if you need my love, my clothes are off, I'm coming over to your place. So you probably can't, but I'm gonna ask anyway. Can you tease the third book just a little bit for us? Like on a scale of 1 to 10, how emotionally devastated should we feel?
I can literally tell you nothing about book 3.
That was my fear, but I still had to ask.
I'm not a spoiler girl, I don't do that.
Is there a character that changed the most between Quicksilver to Brimstone?
He didn't change, but you just got to know him better. Definitely Kingfisher, He was very reserved and kind of like walls up in Quicksilver, and it was impossible to kind of like show you beyond that because he was keeping so many secrets and there was so much going on behind the scenes that, we as the reader aren't aware of. You can't really know him or meet him where he's at in Quicksilver. You get glimpses behind the curtain and you see these moments of vulnerability or emotion from him, but you never really get the true picture. The wall comes down in Brimstone, he gets to show just how much he feels for Ceres and like what he's willing to sacrifice. He hasn't changed. He's just, shown you more, I think.
Do you think there's a character that readers are sleeping on? It just doesn't get enough play, in your opinion?
My sister Gemma would say Loreth for sure. She loves Loreth. I love Loreth too, obviously.
I absolutely love Loreth's character. He's funny, he's nice, he's sweet, he can sing. 10 out of 10. Love him so much.
And Loreth actually has a great storyline that I'm really excited to dive very deep into. No spoilers, but there's a couple of characters in book 2 that we haven't met before in book 1. So they have very unique storylines too that we're going to learn a lot more about in book 3 and hopefully beyond.
Brimstone expands the emotional scope with dual POV. What did Kingfisher's chapter let you finally say that Sarah's point of view alone couldn't?
With the POV chapters, it was really refreshing for me because, Quicksilver was my 43rd book and I had written nearly all of them. In fact, I think that there's like maybe 3 books or 4 books that weren't dual POV throughout my entire career as a writer. So it was a real jarring experience for me not to be able to deep dive and show, exactly what was going on in Kingfisher's head. The POV chapters that I put out after I finished book 1 were, for me, more than anything, to be able to connect with Kingfisher in that way and to scratch the itch because I've been so desperate to write from his point of view. And I had wanted to write that scene when they had the battle at Agen Gate, just for my own enjoyment, because I love writing battle scenes and it's such a pivotal, important part of the story that it was kind of like fun to be able to show that as a historical event and being able to show, a little hint at how long Kingfisher has known about Ceres and, the genesis of their kind of connection way back before he ever met her and he could see her on the hill and he was like, who is that? Just a nice kind of like window into his head for a minute, So
when you first started writing this series, did you always know how this was going to end?
Yes. I've had the whole thing mapped out before I started writing Quicksilver. It's a true test of patience, and patience is not my forte at all. Being able to write the scenes that I had planned back in 2023 when I was plotting out the entirety of the story of the trilogy is like so cathartic. It's a very satisfying experience.
So as we've touched on, you've had a long career. You've been doing this for a hot minute. What are 3 previous books of yours that you would recommend to somebody who's already read Quicksilver?
Good question. I love the Blood and Roses series, which is going to be traditionally published in March this year. That one has my OG bad boy, Zeth Mayfair. He's already got quite a following, so I'm excited to share him with the rest of of you guys. Hopefully you'll come and check him out. I've got a couple of standalones that I'm really proud of as well. There's one called Requiem, which is a dark academia with some huge plot twists. I love Between Here and the Horizon, and I love Calico. They're two contemporary standalones. They're very emotional, but with a very dark edge too. So I don't know, like palette cleanser standalones are always my recommendation, but Blood and Roses is like a 9-book series. So it just depends, you know, what you're in the mood for.
How invested do we want to get right now? I love that. I love that.
Exactly.
As an author, what was your introduction to romance in romance novels?
I don't know. I think I just started watching like a lot of CW shows when I was in my 20s, and that kind of like pushed me into reading romance novels. I mean, I watched Twilight. I had never heard of Twilight when it came out. My friend dragged me along to go watch Twilight, and I was like, what is this? And I came out and I was like, I must read the books, you know, and I devoured them. So, you know, I have a lot to thank Stephanie Meyer for, and that, you know, kind of snowballed from there, I suppose.
What are your top 5 favorite books?
These questions are always so hard because your brain just goes, nope, sorry.
No, yeah,
We're not
exactly.
gonna that information for you right now. I'll give you my top 5 right now. I'm still reading Joe Abercrombie. And I'm loving the series. It has nothing to like. I've been asked this question for the last year, and I'm like still reading his series, but it's just, you know, I've been so slammed. It's been hard to kind of like. Anyway, the Blade itself is amazing. There is a book by Christopher Buehlman called Between Two Fires, which is fantastic, and I'm obsessed with it. I am listening to Dungeon Crawler Carl, the whole series right now. I'm on book 4, and it's just a wild, riotous ride. So Matt Dinnerman really knocked it out of the park there. Lord of the Rings is always the GOAT, you know, always has been, always will be, and has, you know, rightfully claims its place as number 1 of all time. And one more, I think I'm going to say The Expanse, the whole Expanse series, the James A. Corey books, like that, obviously the TV series is based on. They're just so well planned and politically intriguing and very cool. Like, yeah.
Do you remember the first time you read a book that emotionally wrecked you?
I think, you know, I read Maggie Stiefvater, I read Shiver, and it didn't emotionally wreck me, but it was the first time that I was like, you know, so emotionally invested that, you know, I was feeling all the feels, you know what I mean? People may call me a hypocrite for this because of what went down in Brimstone, but like when animals get hurt in a book, I'm destroyed. So, spoilers, sorry if anyone hasn't read Brimstone. Oh, The Fault in Our Stars. Yeah, that really wrecked me. John Green just tore it out. And
yeah. Mm-hmm. So what got you into writing?
I've always wanted to write. As a kid, would write little limericks with my grandmother. We would trade them back and forth, and she would, you know, encourage me to write. And I was always very intrigued by the idea of writing a book, but I'm not a very patient person. So I just assumed it wasn't ever going to be for me because, you know, I need like instant gratification. So after I finished being a ski bum in Canada, I went to Australia and found myself out in the middle of the bush for 3 months and had nothing to do while I was waiting, you know, to go back to civilization, essentially. I was like, you know, I would love to try and do this. I just don't know if I've got the stamina for it, the patience. But I did it in those 3 months while I was living there, out there in Goulburn. And the rest is history, I suppose.
So when you're writing, do you see yourself in your characters? You place it intentionally, or is it just naturally?
No, and my goal is to always make sure that I'm not in my characters. You know, I don't want to put anything of my actual surroundings or people that I know into my characters, because they're already pretty fully formed when they, you know, I spend a lot of time on that. So I try and make them as diverse and kind of interesting as possible and give them their own, you know, trauma and motivations and goals and secrets and all those things. They don't need mine. All of this comes from me. So of course there is going to be pieces of me in there. That's, you know, you can't help that. But the goal is to try and minimize that as much as possible. So
being an author today often means having a social media presence. How do you personally approach social media?
I hate social media so much. I have a lot to thank TikTok for, like I would not be in this position. That was truly life-changing, career-changing. So I will forever be grateful to that, what happened thanks to that platform and to the people who supported me on that platform. We always, to my grave, incredibly grateful to those people. But typically I try and avoid going online. It's just such a time suck, and there are other things that I want to accomplish. So I want to live my life. I don't want to be glued to my phone screen, and that can happen if I run the risk of opening up the apps on my phone. So there are great apps that you can schedule posts on and, walk away.
I have some audience questions here. Ooh, Hannah from Austin, Texas wants to know, marry or kill Kingfisher, Carrion, or Renfis?
Ren always gets the bad deal in these things. I feel really sorry for him. I would Carrion because that would be a good time, and I would marry Kingfisher, and therefore have to kill poor old Ren. I actually had a marry kill for Madra Bellicon and Malcolm, which was a truly tough one, and I was like, now
I need those answers though. Just go ahead and just ask that one. Give me those answers.
I always say, I would Bellicon, which always makes my skin crawl, and marry Malcolm because he is a hottie, even though he's like, deranged, and then kill Madra because she's a bitch. So
yeah, you're like, there we go.
Yeah.
Samantha from Brisbane, Australia wants to know, will we ever get a Carrion Swift? I feel like I need to put the way I always just think it in my brain and see it on social media. Carrion Swift novel. In Brimstone, he solidified himself as main character energy, and we love him. So he definitely deserves his own novel.
My goal is that, I get to write hopefully 3 side character novels after I'm done with book 3. I keep nearly saying the title of the book, and I'm not allowed to do that.
You know what? We would keep it so to our chest, just us, and then all of the Wild West. Yeah,
for sure. I believe you, millions wouldn't. No, the goal has always been, hopefully, that I get to write either what would be considered a sister series, where it's a through line, interconnected standalones with different characters, or I get to continue in this and write books 4, 5, and 6. We'll see.
Okay, Ellie from Salt Lake City, Utah wants to know. I'm telling you, there's a theme here. Where was Carrion's sword? You referenced it being gone too many times for it not to be important.
I'm not sure when this is airing, but you may have the answer to that by the time.
I know you're not a spoiler. This is what I'm learning. February 4th, I'm telling you, you're just not a spoiler girly.
I'm really not, but I'm just saying, maybe by now, maybe the people in the audience will already know the answer to that question.
We're looking forward to it, February 14th. Okay, all right. Bree from Round Rock, Texas wants to know, I loved Saris as a character. She was clearly a badass, and from the very beginning, an equal to Kingfisher in spirit and grit. How do you go about forming her as a character, and did you enjoy writing her?
It's like the most joyful thing for me to write is a badass female character. It's all I want to write. I don't write weak female characters. I knew that Saris was going to have to be a very strong character in order to, meet Fisher where he was at. And that was the goal, so thank you. I appreciate that. She is designed to be his equal in everything, that there's no point in which, he's designed to complete her or to, really save her. He did that one time. But I love kind of like looking at them as a whole and kind of really dismantling who they are as people and where like her strengths are his weaknesses with the Quicksilver and, in multiple other ways, and vice versa, separate parts of a whole, not one thing, you know what I mean? So she just had to be a badass to deal with him.
Caro from Seattle, Washington wants to know, do you have trinkets, pets, places, or specific kind of weather that inspired you to write something in the Fae and Alchemy?
Yeah, so Onyx is inspired by my dog, Cooper, for sure. When I wrote Quicksilver, he sat on my lap the whole time, every day, and was just waiting for me to get done so I could go play. He's a little mini dachshund, so he was just chilling in my lap the whole time, which was really... He got bored eventually in Brimstone. He's like, screw this. But yeah, like for Quicksilver, he hung out with me every day while I did that. And he's my homie. He's my little guy.
Jessica from Mesa, Arizona wants to know, what has been your favorite scene to write so far?
I really like the quiet scenes, you know, like, I mean, there's certain scenes, you know, the one where Kingfisher goes back to get Hayden the first time and he returns, and we have that moment where Ceres is like, that's not my brother, that's Carrie Swift. That will, you know, always be such a favorite for me, because I had envisaged that for so long before I got to write the book, and I knew, like, you know, it was like just the start of all the mayhem with him, and I was very excited to sink my teeth into that. So that was very fun. There's some real like crazy battle scenes in book 3 that I can't even tell you about, that have, you know, scratched a real itch for me as a Lord of the Rings lover. Yeah, but the quiet scenes get me the most sometimes. There's the scene in Quicksilver where, you know, Kingfisher and Ceres are at odds. She slept on the couch, he slept in the chair. She realizes, she looks back at him, even though she's mad at him, and sees how broken he is. And she just goes and holds him until he's okay, and he kind of nods. And then she goes, you know, and that is just like, it's the first moment where she's really giving in to the emotional side of what's going on between them and acknowledging that and being there for him. And then there's another scene in Brimstone where he comes back and he's tipping the sand out of his boots, because that was actually the very first scene I ever imagined for this series. Yeah, the very, very first scene. And you know, I had these two characters in this strange scenario, and I see him with his boots full of sand, and I don't know how he gets there. So I go backwards, you know, I'm like, who are these people? Where does the sand come from? Why is it in his boots?
I love that. That's so cool. Can I play a little this or that game with you?
Absolutely.
Audiobooks or physical books?
Physical.
Reading one book at a time or multiple books at once?
One for sure.
Rereading your favorites or reading new books?
That really depends, because I will go back and reread my favorites sometimes. If I'm in a bit of a slump and I'm not really, you know, able to, you know, really sink my teeth into something new, which happens all the time, I'll go back and reread for sure. But there's nothing like, you know, discovering a new story for the first time and going on a brand new adventure. So yeah, that's very subjective. That depends.
No, I'm the same way. I literally am the same. If I'm going through a slump and I feel like nothing's really kind of hitting, I'll go back to a story I know. It's like a comfort. And then I'm ready to dive into something new. I'm like, let's go again. Let's pick something else. Yes.
So
okay, plot first or characters first?
Both. I'm so greedy. Jeez. I feel like you can't, like, no story can stand just by itself with one of those things. I think you need both. If I had to choose, probably character, you know, because the characters to me are the most fundamental, like, you know, important pieces of a story. And they provide such depth to everything else. But I don't know, you need both.
Plotter or pantser?
Historically pantser, now diehard plotter.
I am telling you, I don't know how you do it, praise thee. Because let me tell you, when I try to go and retell the book to other people, I'm like, that's I'm like, I know I read it, I know I loved it, but chronologically I'm like, oh wait, but then we forgot, and then we have to like jump back. I can't.
Yeah, you gotta plot that.
I can't retell a story to save my life, apparently.
Well, I mean, I had been planning Quicksilver and the whole series since 2017, so I had many run-throughs, but I did plot every single chapter and make sure that it had a purpose and a reason for being there. So I knew the path. I had way markers for myself. Thank the gods, because I would have. Yes, it's quite the ride.
Okay, standalone novels or series?
Totally depends. Usually I'll do a series and then I'll do a standalone to kind of like, you know, as a palate cleanser. But I do love a series. I love, if I love something and I found a story that I like, I want more of it, like everyone else. So yeah, both. So greedy.
Hey, you know what? I get it. I love it. Fae or vampires?
Oh gosh, I think Fae. I don't know. That's so hard. That's a toughie. Ah, man, I can't just keep saying both. That's such a cop out. I'll go Fae, but my God, every once in a while, I get a little vampire action. I'm just saying.
I love it. No, I'm telling you, I live for a good vampire moment. Even if it's just sprinkled in, I'm like, ugh, I love a good vampire moment. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It's such an honor and such a pleasure to talk with you. And thank you. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. I hope everyone's having a great time at the event. And again, I'm sorry I couldn't be there, but I've loved doing this and I hope that you have a fun weekend.
Yes.